Rangers find a wounded Bigfoot hidden inside an old mine shaft, but that's not the part that got my partner killed. October 2019, Cascade Mountains. Something had torn through steel grating meant to seal the Copper King mine. From the inside, the blood trail we followed wasn't from any animal I'd seen in 23 years of ranger service. Too much of it. Wrong color. That copper and wet dog smell. 8 feet down that shaft, it was dying from 3 bullet wounds. But it had collected 40 years of driver's licenses from missing hikers, drew star charts with charcoal, built tools from old mining equipment. Those eyes weren't animal, they were calculating, intelligent, afraid. Then came the unmarked helicopters, the extraction team. They weren't surprised to find it, they'd been hunting it. My body camera footage vanished. My partner disappeared 3 weeks later. They've been killing them for decades, and silencing anyone who tries to prove they exist. What else are they hiding? My name is Paul Harrier, and for 23 years, I wore the uniform of a United States Forest Service Ranger with pride. That ended 6 months ago, though officially, I'm on extended administrative leave pending psychological evaluation. The truth is simpler and uglier. I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, tried to help something I wasn't supposed to help, and now I'm sitting in a cramped apartment in Bismarck, North Dakota, about as far from the Cascade Wilderness as they could send me without leaving the continental United States. I'm recording this because Tina's been missing for 3 weeks now, and I think whoever took her might come for me next. Maybe if I get this out there, someone will continue looking for answers. Or maybe they'll just write me off as another wilderness burnout who spent too many years alone in the woods. Either way, I need to tell you what really happened at the Copper King mine in October 2019. The Cascade, foothills of Washington State, aren't like the postcards. Sure, there's beauty there, old-growth cedar and Douglas fir so tall you can't see the tops on foggy mornings, crystal streams that taste like minerals and pine needles. But there's darkness too, forgotten logging roads that lead nowhere, mine shafts from the 1890s that swallow sound and light, places where hikers vanish and search teams find nothing but silence. I knew those woods better than most. Every trail, every seasonal creek, every abandoned structure within 100 square miles of my station. I knew which mines were sealed and which ones kids still tried to explore on dares. I knew where the black bears denned and where the cougars raised their young. After 2 decades, you develop a feel for when something's wrong in your forest. That October morning started wrong before the sun came up. District Ranger Carl Brennan called me at 4:30, which wasn't unusual. Search and rescue calls came at all hours. But his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Paul, need you and Voss at the station by 0500. Bring your mine inspection gear. Which mine? I asked, already pulling on my uniform. Copper King, some hunters reported. Irregularities. The Copper King. Just hearing the name made something cold settle in my stomach. That mine had been sealed since 1987 after a series of incidents the Forest Service didn't like to talk about. 3 prospectors died in the original 1894 cave-in, but that was just the beginning. Over the years, 17 people had gone missing within a 2-mile radius of that shaft. The official explanation was always the same: inexperienced hikers, dangerous terrain, old mining hazards. But those of us who worked the area knew better. We'd all felt it, that crawling sensation when you got too close to the entrance, the way birds wouldn't nest in the trees nearby, the absolute silence that pressed against your ears like cotton. When I got to the station, Tina Voss was already there, checking her geological equipment. 15 years with the Forest Service, and she was the best cave and mine specialist in the Pacific Northwest. If anyone could read rock formations and structural integrity, it was Tina. Brennan spread photos across his desk, images from trail cameras the hunters had set up near the mine. The first few showed normal wildlife deer, a black bear, a family of raccoons. Then he laid down 3 more. These were taken 2 nights ago, between 2 and 4 a.m. The photos showed deer carcasses, not killed, arranged. 6 bodies, laid out in a rough semicircle around the mine entrance, heads pointing inward. The positioning was too deliberate, too precise to be natural. But what made my skin crawl was the 7th photomassive cedar branches, each as thick as my thigh, woven into a barrier across the old access road. Woven. Not fallen, not randomly placed. Woven. Probably just tweakers setting up a cook site, Brennan said. but his eyes didn't believe it. Need you two to check it out. Make sure the mine seal's intact. Document everything. And Paul, he looked directly at me. Full safety protocols, both of you. That meant hazmat procedures, constant radio contact, and weapons authorized. In 23 years, I'd only heard full safety protocols ordered twice. The drive to Copper King took 3 hours on roads that had been fighting a losing battle with the forest for decades. Tina drove while I navigated, neither of us saying much at first. We'd partnered on dozens of calls over the years, lost hikers, injured climbers, the occasional meth lab in the woods. We had a rhythm, an unspoken understanding of each other's strengths. But this felt different. You ever been to Copper King before? Tina asked as we turned onto the final logging road. Once, back in '07, some college kids thought they'd found a back entrance. Had to extract one with a broken leg before he got too far in. Find anything unusual? I thought about lying, but Tina deserved the truth. The kid kept talking about voices in the walls. Said something was watching him from deeper in the shaft. Chalked it up to shock and darkness. But when we were rigging the rescue lines, I heard them too. Like someone having a conversation just beyond the range where you could make out words. Tina nodded slowly. Acoustic properties of old mines can be weird. Temperature differentials, air pressure changes. That's what I told myself. We had to stop a quarter mile from the mine entrance. The road was completely blocked, not just with the woven branches from the photos, but with an elaborate construction of logs and vegetation that looked almost architectural. Tina got out first, circling the barrier with her camera. Paul, look at this. Where she was pointing, smaller branches had been twisted together in an intricate pattern, almost like Celtic knotwork. The force required to bend green wood that way without breaking it would be enormous. And here, she moved to the base of the barrier. These support logs are sunk 3 feet into the ground. This isn't random. This is engineering. We marked the GPS coordinates and started documenting everything. That's when I noticed the smell, a thick, musky odor, like wet dog mixed with copper. It got stronger as we worked our way around the barrier on foot. The forest was wrong here. No bird songs, no insect buzz, just our footsteps and breathing. The morning light seemed dimmer under the canopy, like the trees were holding it back. Every 50 feet or so, we found more evidence bark stripped from trees at a height of 9 to 10 feet deep, gouges in the wood that didn't match any tool marks I knew. Then Tina found the tracks. They were in a muddy depression near a seasonal creek, partially filled with water but still clear, enough to photograph. The prints were humanoid in shape, but massive, 18 inches long, 8 inches wide at the ball of the foot. The toe marks were distinct, showing flexibility, and the depth suggested something that weighed at least 400 pounds. Black bear walking on hind legs? I suggested, knowing how weak it sounded. Tina was already taking measurements, making casts with the plaster kit she always carried. Bears don't have arches. Bears don't show individual toe placement like this. And bears definitely don't have a stride length of, she stretched her tape measure 58 inches. We followed the tracks for another 100 yards before they disappeared into rocky ground. That's where we found the drag marks, something heavy pulled through the underbrush, breaking saplings and leaving deep furrows in the earth. Dark stains on the vegetation tested positive for blood on Tina's field kit. A lot of blood. Whatever made these tracks was injured, Tina said quietly, badly injured based on the blood loss. And it went toward the mine. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. An injured animal, even a large predator, would seek shelter somewhere it felt safe, somewhere it knew. The mine entrance came into view 20 minutes later, and my breath caught. The steel grating that had sealed it since '87 was twisted outward like aluminum foil, leaving a gap large enough for a person or something else to pass through. Fresh scratches covered the metal, and more of that reddish-brown hair was caught on the torn edges. I tried my radio. Nothing but static, even though we were well within range of the repeater tower on Morrison Peak. My GPS showed our position, then flickered and displayed coordinates that put us somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Tina's equipment was doing the same dance, working one moment, failing the next. Environmental magnetic anomaly, she suggested, but her voice was uncertain. I made the call that haunts me, we should go in. Just far enough to assess the situation, document any hazards, determine if someone needed rescue. by the book ranger stuff. We had our headlamps, our training, our weapons. What could go wrong? The smell hit us the moment we entered that same wet dog and copper odor, but concentrated, mixed with something else. Something organic and wrong. And underneath it all, carried on the stale air flowing from deep in the mountain, came the sound of breathing. Slow, labored, definitely not mechanical. Something was alive down there in the dark. Something big. And it was hurt. Standing at the mouth of that torn entrance, I should have called it in. Should have backed away, radioed for hazmat, maybe even search and rescue. That's what the manual said. That's what 23 years of training demanded. But manuals don't account for the sound of something suffering in the dark, and training doesn't prepare you for the pull of genuine mystery. We go in 50 feet, I told Tina. Document what we can see, then reassess. She was already adjusting her headlamp, double-checking the backup flashlight on her belt. Agreed. But Paul, if this is a wounded bear or cougar, I know. I touched the Glock 40 on my hip, standard issue that I'd only drawn twice in my entire career. But you and I both know this isn't a bear. The temperature dropped 15 degrees the moment we crossed the threshold. My breath came out in small clouds, even though it was 50 degrees outside. The shaft angled down at about 20 degrees. Old timber supports every 10 feet, looking like ribs in some massive throat. Our lights caught century-old tool marks on the walls, the desperate work of men chasing copper veins deep into the mountain. Tina ran her hand along the wall. These scratches are fresh, maybe 2-3 days old. She pointed to a series of parallel gouges about 8 feet up. Whatever made these was using the wall for support. See how they're deeper on the right side? It's favoring its left leg. The blood trail was more pronounced here, protected from the elements. Dark drops and smears that looked almost black in our headlamp beams. But there was something else, deliberate marks in the blood, like something had been dragged through it in patterns. Tina, look at this. Near one of the timber supports, symbols had been drawn in blood on the wood. Not random smears, but intentional marks, circles, lines. Something that might have been a star. My camera flash illuminated them for a moment before the battery indicator dropped from full to half. Did you see that? I checked the camera. The battery was now showing empty. Tina's equipment was doing the same thing. Her geological scanner, the one she used to check for gases and structural integrity, kept cycling through readings that made no sense, showing massive electromagnetic fluctuations 1 second, nothing the next. We continued deeper, following that labored breathing sound. The shaft opened into a small chamber where miners had followed a vein sideways before giving up. More symbols here, but these were older, drawn in what looked like charcoal on the bare rock. They reminded me of petroglyphs I'd seen at indigenous sites, but wrong somehow, the proportions off, the patterns unfamiliar. Paul. Tina's voice was barely a whisper. Turn off your light. What? Just trust me. I clicked off my headlamp. The darkness was absolute for a moment. Then I saw what she'd noticed, a faint glow coming from deeper in the mine. Not artificial light, but a phosphorescent gleam like you sometimes see in deep caves where certain minerals collect. We moved toward it, our boots scraping on loose rock. The main shaft continued past the side chamber, and the timber supports here were damaged, not rotted or collapsed, but bent inward like something too large had forced its way through. The breathing was louder now, and underneath it, a sound that made my teeth ache. A low rumble that seemed to come from the rock itself. Not quite a growl, not quite speech, but something in between. My primitive brain was screaming at me to run, but I kept walking. The blood trail led to another opening, this one natural, a limestone cavern that the miners had broken into by accident. The phosphorescent glow was stronger here, coming from patches of what Tina identified as oxidized mineral deposits. And the smell was overwhelming. Wet dog, copper, and now something else. Something medicinal, like crushed herbs. We should go back, Tina said, but she was already raising her camera. That's when we heard it clearly for the first time, a vocalization that wasn't quite animal, wasn't quite human. It formed patterns, almost like words, but in no language I'd ever heard. The sound reverberated through the cavern, and I felt it in my chest cavity. My hand moved to my weapon, but I didn't draw it. Instead, I called out, "Forest Service, we're here to help." The breathing stopped. For 10 seconds, maybe 15, There was absolute silence. Then, from the darkness beyond our light's reach, came a sound I'll never forget, a perfect mimicry of my own words, here to help. But the voice was wrong, too deep, too resonant, like someone had slowed down a recording. Tina grabbed my arm. "Paul, we need to tan." A rock sailed out of the darkness, landing at our feet with precision. Not thrown in aggression, but placed, deliberately. On its surface, drawn in what looked like mud, was an arrow pointing deeper into the cavern. I've made a lot of decisions I regret, but following that arrow isn't one of them. Even knowing what came after the cover-up, the threats, Tina's disappearance, I'd do it again. Because what we found in that cavern changed everything I thought I knew about what shares these mountains with us. The passage narrowed, forcing us to duck in places. The blood trail was heavier here, and mixed with it were clumps of reddish-brown hair, coarse and thick like nothing I'd ever felt. Tina bagged a sample with her forceps, her hands steady despite everything. "This isn't bare fur," she said unnecessarily. "It's almost primate-like, but the thickness is wrong. And the length, some of these strands are over 18 inches. The passage opened into a larger chamber, maybe 40 feet across and 20 feet high. Our lights played across flowstone formations and stalactites, beautiful in any other context. But what drew our attention was the far wall, where the blood trail ended. The creature, and I call it that only because I have no better word, was pressed against the limestone, trying to make itself smaller despite its massive frame. Even hunched and wounded, it was easily 8 feet tall. Reddish-brown hair covered most of its body, matted with blood and dirt. Its proportions were wrong for a human, but too human for an ape. Longer arms, barrel chest, legs that looked capable of tremendous power despite the obvious injury to the left one. But it was the eyes that stopped me cold. Brown, intelligent, filled with pain, but also a calculation. It was studying us as much as we were studying it. Those eyes tracked between Tina and me, noting our equipment, our postures, the weapons we carried. The left leg was bad. Even from 30 feet away, I could see the swelling, the unnatural angle below the knee. 3 wounds, each about the size of a dime, seeped dark fluid. Bullet wounds, no question. But what struck me was what the creature was doing. It had packed the wounds with some kind of plant material, a poultice that seemed to be drawing out infection. "Don't move," I said to Tina, though she was frozen anyway. I took 1 step forward, hands visible and empty. The creature tensed but didn't retreat. Couldn't retreat, it was already against the wall. This close, I could see more details. Scars across its chest, old ones, healed long ago. Hands that were massive but articulated, with opposable thumbs. And around its neck, barely visible through the matted hair, something that looked like a cord made from plant fibers. "You understand me, don't you?" I kept my voice low, calm, the same tone I used with injured hikers in shock. The creature's head tilted slightly. Then, with movements that seemed to cause significant pain, it reached beside itself and lifted something. A stick, maybe 2 feet long. It placed the stick upright in the dirt, then knocked it over. Placed it upright again, knocked it over. The third time, it left the stick standing and pointed at it, then at us. "Is it counting?" Tina whispered. "No," I said, understanding flooding through me. "It's showing us there are 2 of us and 1 of it. It knows it's outnumbered." The creature made that low rumbling sound again, but quieter now. Its right hand moved to its injured leg, hovering over the wounds. Then it pointed at my medical kit, clearly visible on my belt. The gesture was unmistakable, a request for help. "Paul, we can't." Tina started. "We can't what? Leave it here to die?" "Look at those wounds, Tina. Someone shot it, recently. This thing, whatever it is, it's not the danger here." I opened my medical kit slowly, making sure the creature could see every movement. Antibiotics, gauze, medical tape. I laid them on a flat rock about halfway between us and backed away. The creature watched me retreat, then looked at the supplies. It made no move toward them. "It doesn't trust us," Tina said. "Would you?" That's when the creature did something that still haunts me. It reached behind itself and pulled out a worn, weathered piece of fabric. As it unfolded, I recognized it, a Forest Service uniform shirt. the old style we'd stopped using in the 70s. The name Patch was still legible. Thompson. I knew that name. Robert Thompson, the ranger who disappeared in 1978, supposedly fell into an abandoned shaft. His body was never recovered. The creature held up the shirt, pointed at it, then at my uniform. The message was clear, it knew what we were. More than that, it had kept this shirt for over 40 years. Why? As a trophy, a warning, or something else entirely? The creature carefully folded the shirt and set it aside. Then it picked up something else from its collection of objects, a small notebook, water-damaged and yellowed. It opened to a page and held it up. Even from a distance, I could see writing, human writing. My God, Tina breathed. It's been collecting things from missing hikers. It's been studying us. The notebook changed everything. The creature held it toward us, patient despite its obvious pain, until I worked up the courage to approach. Each step forward felt like crossing some invisible boundary, and the creature watched me with those unsettling, intelligent eyes. When I got within 10 feet, it set the notebook on a flat rock and retreated, giving me space. The pages were water-damaged and fragile, but the writing was still legible in places. Different handwriting styles, different pens. As I turned the pages, my stomach dropped. These were final messages, notes from people who knew they weren't getting out. June 15th, 1992. My name is David Chen. Fell into a crevasse near Cooper Ridge. Leg broken. If you find this. The rest was too damaged to read. Another page. Tell my wife I love her. Tell her I tried to come home. Michael Brennan. No relation to Carl, I checked later. But the last legible entry made my hand shake. They're not monsters. They tried to help. The young one brought me water, food, but I'm too hurt, internal bleeding. They understand so much more than we. The writing trailed off. I looked up at the creature. It was watching me read, and when our eyes met, it made a gesture hand over its chest, then extended toward me. I'd seen enough grief to recognize it, even in a form I didn't understand. You tried to help them, I said quietly. These people. You tried to help them, didn't you? The creature's hand moved to its wounded leg, then pointed at the notebook. The connection was clear. It had tried to help, and someone had shot it for the effort. Tina moved beside me, reading over my shoulder. Paul, look at the dates. These span 50 years. How long do these things live? Before I could respond, the creature made that low rumbling sound again, but different this time. It was looking past us, toward the passage we'd come through. Its whole posture changed from wounded and defensive to alert and frightened. Then I heard it too. Distant but unmistakable voices. Human voices, echoing down through the mineshaft. The creature moved with surprising speed despite its injury, gathering its collected items, the notebook, the old Forest Service shirt, and several other objects I couldn't identify, and stuffing them into a makeshift bag created from what looked like a deer hide. It pointed urgently at a narrow opening in the far wall I hadn't noticed before, partially hidden behind flowstone. It wants us to follow, Tina said. The voices were getting closer. I could make out words now. Heat, signatures stronger, big one, just like the briefing said. Military? Tina whispered. Or something pretending to be. The creature was already squeezing through the opening, its size making it a tight fit. It looked back at us, and the urgency in its eyes was unmistakable. Whatever was coming down that shaft, this thing feared it more than it feared us. I made the decision. Go, I told Tina. I'll grab the medical supplies. I scooped up the antibiotics and gauze I'd left on the rock, then followed Tina through the opening. The passage was tight, maybe 3 feet wide, and curved immediately out of sight. Behind us, the voices grew louder, more distinct. Definitely came through here, blood still fresh. Remember, non-lethal if possible. They wanted alive. The passage opened into another chamber, smaller than the first. The creature was standing, or trying to. The escape had cost it. Fresh blood seeped through the plant material poultice, and its breathing was more labored. But it kept moving, pointing to markings on the wall, the same symbols we'd seen earlier, but arranged like a map. The creature traced its finger along the symbols, showing us a route through the mountain I never knew existed. Passages that weren't on any Forest Service survey, chambers that had never seen human lights. It moved with desperate purpose, dragging its injured leg but never stopping. "We need to help it," I said, catching up and offering my shoulder for support. The creature froze, looking down at me. I'm 6'2" and it still towered over me. For a moment, I thought I'd made a fatal mistake. Then carefully, it placed one massive hand on my shoulder. The weight was incredible, but controlled. It was being gentle. We moved together through the passages, Tina leading with her light, marking our path with chalk so we could find our way back. The voices behind us faded but didn't disappear. Whoever they were tracking us, methodically working through the passages. The creature guided us to a chamber that took my breath away. The walls were covered in charcoal drawings, not primitive cave paintings, but complex illustrations. Star patterns that looked like navigation charts, topographical representations of the Cascade Range, and figures, dozens of them. Tall, hair-covered beings in family groups. Adults, juveniles, even what looked like infants. "There's more than one," Tina said unnecessarily. "It's a whole population." The creature moved to one particular drawing, pointing at a figure, then at itself. Then it pointed at smaller figures around a family group. Its family. That's when I noticed the collection in the corner. Driver's licenses, arranged chronologically on a natural shelf. 43 of them, dating back to 1971, all from missing persons cases I knew. But they were arranged in two groups, one larger, one smaller. The creature saw me looking. It pointed to the larger group, then made a gesture across its throat. Dead. Then the smaller group, and it pointed to the passage we'd come through, then walking fingers. These people had been helped, had walked out. "You've been trying to help lost hikers for 50 years, I said. "And some of them made it out because of you." The creature moved to another wall, where more recent items were stored. A digital camera, probably from the early 2000s. It picked it up, surprisingly careful with the small device, and showed me the screen. The battery was dead, but the creature produced, I kid you not, a small solar charger, probably taken from a hiker's pack. With practiced movements, it connected the camera and set it in a shaft of light, coming through a crack in the ceiling. "It knows how to use our technology," Tina breathed. While we waited for the camera to charge, the creature finally accepted the medical supplies. It allowed Tina to properly clean the wounds while I held a flashlight. 3 bullet holes, 9mm by my guess, all in the lower leg. One had chipped bone. Without proper medical attention, infection would kill it within days. 2 weeks ago, I said, looking at the wound healing. "This happened 2 weeks ago." The creature nodded, actually nodded, and pointed toward the south. Then it made a shooting gesture, pointed at itself, and showed us 5 fingers. 5 of them had been shot. The camera beeped on. The creature navigated the menu with one huge finger, surprisingly dexterous, and showed us the stored images. My heart stopped. Photos of other creatures, clear as day. A group, by a river. 2 juveniles, playing. An elderly-looking one, with silver-gray hair. And then the last photo's bodies. 3 creatures, lying in unnatural positions. Blood pooling beneath them. The metadata showed a date. October 6th, 2019. 2 weeks ago. The final image was blurry, taken while running. It showed figures in tactical gear, no unit patches, no identifying marks. One was aiming a rifle at the camera. "They're being hunted," Tina said quietly. "Systematically hunted." The creature took the camera back and did something I didn't expect. It deleted all the photos of living creatures, leaving only the evidence of the killings and the tactical team. Then it handed the camera to me, pressing it into my hands with unmistakable intention. "You want us to show people, to expose this?" A sound echoed through the passages, drilling. Someone was using heavy equipment to widen the openings. The creature stood, favoring its wounded leg, and pointed to another passage. It drew a quick map on the dusty floor, showing us a route that led out. But it pointed to itself, then to a different direction. It wasn't coming with us. The creature's breathing was getting worse. Each exhale came with a wet rattle that I recognized from too many backcountry medical emergencies. Infection was setting in fast, and the antibiotics I'd brought were meant for humans, not whatever this was. "We need to get it proper medical attention," Tina said, but we both knew how impossible that was. The creature seemed to understand our dilemma. It moved to a natural shelf in the cave wall and retrieved something wrapped in deer hide. With careful movements, it unwrapped a collection of plants, some dried, some fresh. It selected specific ones, crushing them between its massive palms with practiced precision. The smell was pungent, medicinal. Pine resin, something that might have been willow bark, and other plants I didn't recognize. It mixed these with water from a hollowed-out stone, creating a paste. Then, looking directly at me, it pointed to the antibiotics I'd left, then to its mixture. The message was clear: use both. It knows medicine, I said. Traditional plant medicine. Tina helped me clean the wounds properly while the creature remained perfectly still, though I could see its jaw muscles clenching with pain. The bullets had done damage, but what worried me more was the deliberate nature of the wounds. 3 shots, all in the lower leg, designed to cripple, not kill. My body camera was still recording, though the battery indicator was dropping faster than it should. I made sure to get clear footage of the creature's face, its hands, the way it watched us with those impossibly human eyes. 17 minutes of footage before the camera died completely. 17 minutes that would later vanish from an evidence locker that was supposed to be secure. The creature reached for the broken mirror again, studying its own reflection. Then it did something that stopped my heart. It pointed at its reflection, then at me, then drew a circle in the air that encompassed all 3 of us. Same. We're the same. Jesus, Tina whispered. That's when we heard the first explosion. Not close, but close enough. The tactical team wasn't being subtle anymore. The creature immediately began gathering its possessions, the photographs, the old Forest Service shirt, the driver's licenses. It moved with purpose despite the pain, like someone who'd practiced emergency evacuation before. It showed us more of the charcoal map, tracing a route with one finger. The path led through passages I couldn't understand. How could there be that many tunnels? This was supposed to be a single mine shaft with a few side galleries. These aren't all mining tunnels, Tina said, studying the map. Look at the geological markers it's drawn. Some of these are natural lava tubes. The mine just broke into an existing cave system. The creature actually nodded, and pointed deeper into the mountain. It gathered up the medical supplies, packing them efficiently, then looked at us expectantly. It wants us to come with it, I said. Paul, we can't just... Another explosion, closer this time. Rock dust drifted from the ceiling. The creature made that low rumbling sound again. Urgent now. It pointed at our uniforms, then at the passages behind us where the tactical team was approaching, then made a cutting motion across its throat. The meaning was crystal clear. They wouldn't spare us either. We'd seen too much. I thought about the 17 minutes of footage on my camera. Tina's detailed field notes, the photographs the creature had shown us, evidence of an intelligent, undiscovered primate species living in the Cascades, evidence that someone in the government already knew about and was actively suppressing. We go with it, I decided. We can't help if we're disappeared too. The passages the creature led us through shouldn't have existed. Tina kept checking her geological survey maps, muttering about impossible formations and undocumented systems. Some tunnels were clearly man-made, bearing the scars of 19th century mining tools. Others were natural, smooth-walled lava tubes that predated human presence by millennia. The creature moved with surprising speed despite its injuries, navigating in near darkness with a confidence that suggested years of familiarity. Every 100 feet or so, it would pause, pressing one massive hand against the rock wall, as if feeling for vibrations. Twice, it suddenly changed direction, leading us down alternate passages just before we heard voices echoing from the route we'd abandoned. In one wider chamber, we found evidence of tool-making that made Tina gasp. Pieces of metal from old mining equipment had been reshaped into cutting implements. Rock had been napped into sharp edges, using techniques I'd only seen in archaeological exhibits. But most impressive was what looked like a forge, a natural depression where controlled fire had been used to heat and shape metal. This is sophisticated tool use, Tina whispered, documenting everything with her backup camera. This goes beyond anything we've seen in other primates. The creature watched her work, then moved to show us something else. On one wall, protected by an overhang of rock, were more drawings. But these were different. They showed the mountain from above, with detailed topographical accuracy. Passages were marked, water sources indicated, even seasonal variations noted with different symbols. It's a survival map, I realized. Everything someone would need to know to live here year-round. The creature pointed to specific marks on the map, then held up fingers. 7. 7 safe locations. Then it pointed to other marks and made that throat-cutting gesture again. Those areas were compromised, dangerous. We could hear, drilling now, the grinding of industrial equipment against rock. They were widening passages, coming faster than we could move. The creature's breathing was more labored, and fresh blood seeped through the bandages we'd applied. That's when it showed us the photographs from the camera, the ones it hadn't deleted. Its family group by a river I recognized as the White River. 2 juveniles playing in snow near Liberty Bell Mountain. An elderly one with silver-gray fur sitting beside what looked like a deliberately constructed shelter. "How many?" I asked, not expecting an answer. The creature looked at me for a long moment, then began making marks in the dust. Groups of 5, 7, 3, different locations. When it was done, it had marked about 40 individuals. 40, Tina breathed. There are 40 of them. The creature erased the marks quickly, then pointed to the photographs of the dead ones. It held up 3 fingers, then pointed to the marks it had made. 3 out of 40 killed. Its eyes held a grief that transcended species. A new sound echoed through the passages. Dogs. They'd brought tracking dogs. The creature's whole demeanor changed. It moved to a section of wall that looked solid, but pushed against it in a specific pattern. A section swung inward, a hidden door. Camouflaged so perfectly, we'd walked past similar ones without noticing. Beyond was its true living space. Books, dozens of them, water-damaged but carefully preserved. Newspapers, dating back decades. A laptop computer that had to be at least 10 years old. Solar panels jury-rigged to charge it. And on every surface, more of those charcoal drawings. But these showed humans. Hikers on trails. Rangers at stations. Children playing near campgrounds. All observed from a distance, all rendered with startling accuracy. "You've been studying us," I said. "For how long?" The creature moved to the oldest drawing, one that showed men in 1800s clothing near what was clearly the Copper King mine. Then it pointed to itself, then to an elderly figure in one of the photographs. Generational knowledge. They'd been watching us since we arrived in their territory. The sound of drilling stopped. That silence was worse than the noise. It meant they'd broken through somewhere. The creature knew it too. Its whole body tensed, head tilted, as if listening to vibrations through the rock that we couldn't feel. Without warning, it moved to what looked like a solid wall and pushed 3 specific points in sequence. A section of rock pivoted inward, another hidden door, this one opening into a narrow passage, barely wide enough for Tina and me to walk single file. The creature had to squeeze through sideways, reopening wounds that had just stopped bleeding. "How many of these hidden passages are there?" Tina whispered. The creature looked back at us and held up both hands, fingers spread. 10. Then it pointed throughout the cave system and repeated. The gesture. Hundreds, maybe. A whole network they'd been creating for God knows how long. The passage opened into a chamber where fresh air flowed from somewhere above. Natural skylights, carefully concealed from the outside, provided dim illumination. But what stopped us cold was what lined the wall's photographs. Dozens of them, all taken with that stolen digital camera. But these weren't of the creature's family. These were surveillance photos. Men in tactical gear moving through the forest. Helicopters with no identifying marks landing in remote clearings. A temporary base camp hidden in a valley I recognized as being about 10 miles north, all dated within the last 3 months. "They've been watching the hunters," I said. The creature pointed to one particular photo, a man in civilian clothes standing next to one of the tactical team members. Even in the grainy image, I recognized him. Assistant Director Harold Mason from the Department of Interior. I'd met him once, at a forestry conference in Seattle. The creature had been building a case, evidence, just like we would. A distant shout echoed through the passages. They'd found our initial route. The creature immediately started gathering specific items. The photographs of the tactical team, a handful of driver's licenses, the old Forest Service shirt. It pressed these into Tina's hands, then pointed urgently toward another passage. "Wait," I said. "You're coming with us." It shook its massive head and pointed to its injured leg, then gestured toward the sounds of pursuit. It couldn't move fast enough. We all knew it. The creature moved to another wall and retrieved something wrapped in plastic, a GPS unit, military grade, still functional. It showed our exact position and a route marked to Highway 20, 2.3 miles through the lava tube system. It handed this to me, then made walking motions with its fingers. "Go. Now." "We're not leaving you to them," Tina said. The creature did something I'll never forget. It placed one enormous hand gently on her shoulder, careful not to use its full strength. Then, it pointed to the photographs of its family she was holding. The message was clear: protect them. Make sure the world knows. Radio static crackled from somewhere close, too close. The creature's eyes widened, and it physically pushed us toward the passage, not roughly, but insistently. As we entered the tunnel, I looked back one more time. The creature was arranging the remaining photographs and documents, building what looked like a funeral pyre with the books and newspapers it had collected over decades. It was going to destroy everything rather than let them have it. We ran. Behind us, voices grew louder, more urgent. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold, a single gunshot, followed by that inhuman roar of pain I'd heard when we first entered the mine. But this time, it was answered. Multiple calls, from different directions. The creature hadn't been alone. Others were coming. The lava tube was a nightmare of tight squeezes and sudden drops. Without the GPS the creature had given us, we would have been lost within minutes. Tina led with her geological expertise, reading the rock formations like a map, while I kept checking behind us. The sounds of pursuit had changed, no longer organized, now chaotic. Shouts, gunfire, and those bone-deep roars that couldn't be human. Halfway through, we found evidence that these passages were regularly used. Carved handholds in difficult sections. Cached supplies in natural alcoves, dried meat, water and repurposed plastic bottles, even medical supplies. This wasn't just an escape route. It was an underground highway the creatures had been using for generations. "Paul, look at this," Tina called from ahead. She was standing in a wider section where multiple tubes intersected. The walls were covered in more of those charcoal maps, but these showed the entire Cascade range. Marked locations spread from Canada to Northern California. Dozens of sites, all connected by natural passages, abandoned mines, and cave systems. "It's a network," she breathed. "They're not isolated. They're organized." A notation caught my eye, numbers beside each marked location. Population counts, maybe. If I was reading it right, there weren't 40 of them. There were hundreds. The GPS beeped. We were close to the exit point. But as we approached, we could hear vehicles above us, engines running, radio chatter. They'd anticipated our escape route. "There's got to be another way," I said. Tina studied the charcoal map, then pointed to a symbol I hadn't noticed, a small circle with an X through it. "Emergency exit. Maybe. It would put us out a half-mile from our vehicle, if the map was accurate." We took it. The passage was older, partially collapsed in places. We had to crawl through sections where the ceiling had dropped to 3 feet. My flashlight was dying, and Tina's was already dead. We were navigating by the dim light from the GPS screen. Then, fresh air. The exit was covered by a carefully arranged pile of deadfall that looked completely natural from the outside. We emerged into late afternoon sunlight, maybe 100 yards from an old logging road I recognized. "Our truck's that way," I whispered, pointing through the trees. We'd made it maybe 50 yards when Tina grabbed my arm. Through the trees, we could see our vehicle surrounded by 3 black SUVs. Men in tactical gear were searching it. "The evidence," Tina whispered, clutching the bag of photographs and documents the creature had given her. I thought about that dying camera battery. 17 minutes of footage that was probably already corrupted or erased by whatever electromagnetic interference plagued the mine. Tina's notes were back in our truck. The only proof we had was what we were carrying. Behind us, from the mine's direction, came the sound of helicopters. Multiple helicopters, and something else explosions. They were sealing the mine, destroying evidence or trapping whoever was still inside. I couldn't tell. "We need to split up," I said. "You take the evidence, head for the ranger station at Marble Mount. I'll draw them off, meet you there. Paul, they'll be looking for 2 people together. Alone, You might make it." She knew I was right. We'd both done enough search and rescue to understand tactics. Tina took the GPS, the photographs, everything the creature had given us, and disappeared into the forest. She knew as well as I did. I made myself obvious, crashing through the underbrush toward our vehicle. As expected, the tactical team converged on my position. I let them catch me, played confused, disoriented, claimed I'd gotten separated from Tina hours ago, that we'd found nothing but abandoned mine shafts and maybe got exposed to bad air. They didn't believe me. But without evidence, without Tina, without the creature, all they had was a ranger who got lost in his own forest. The creature's living space told a story I wasn't prepared for. While Tina documented the charcoal maps, I found myself staring at a collection of children's books arranged on a natural shelf, picture books from the 50s and 60s, reading primers, even a water-damaged copy of Where the Wild Things Are. All stolen from campsites over decades, the creature had been teaching itself to read. A laptop from around 2010 sat on a flat rock, solar charger attached. The battery was dead, but when I powered it on, the screen showed dozens of video files. Trail camera footage the creature had somehow downloaded. Videos of itself and others of its kind moving through the forest at night. But also videos of us rangers, hikers, hunters. It had been studying our patterns just as we studied wildlife. "Paul, you need to see this," Tina called. She'd found the missing persons posters. Maybe 30 of them, weathered, but carefully preserved. Each had symbols drawn in the corners. A circle meant found alive, a cross meant found dead, and a triangle meant never found. The creature had been tracking our search efforts, knowing which people made it home and which didn't. The drilling sound intensified, and dust fell from the ceiling. They were maybe 20 minutes from breaking through. The creature moved with desperate purpose now, gathering specific items. It handed me a journal, handwritten pages in shaky English, like someone learning a second language. The first entry was dated 1998. Learn, write. Hard. Hand, too big for pencil. Must know why they fear. I flipped through pages of improving handwriting, observations about human behavior, questions that broke my heart. Why do they scream when see me? I bring lost child back, but they shoot. Child safe. I not hurt. Why always shoot? The creature took the journal back and tore out specific pages, pressing them into my hands along with 3 photographs, clear shots of its family group by the White River. Then it moved to the volcanic tube entrance, a passage barely visible behind flowstone formations. It pointed at us, then at the tube, then made a sweeping gesture that encompassed everything in the cave. "Take it all. Save what you can." "We can't carry all this," I said. The creature understood. It began selecting items with obvious care. The photographs of the tactical team, the journal pages that documented the killings, a flash drive I hadn't noticed before. It put these in a plastic bag, waterproof and sealed. Then it did something extraordinary. It went to a corner I hadn't examined and pulled out a park ranger's backpack. Inside was a uniform shirt with a name tag, T. Voss. "That's mine," Tina gasped. From my locker. How the creature had been in our station. Recently. It knew who we were before we ever entered the mine. The drilling stopped. In the silence, we could hear voices. Closer now. The creature pressed the backpack into Tina's hands, then began pulling rocks from a pile in the corner. Behind them was another passage, this one heading up. It pointed at me, then Tina, then the passage. Its message was clear, this was our exit. But it wasn't following. Instead, it moved back toward the main chamber, toward the drilling sounds. It was going to buy us time. "No," I said. "Come with us." It looked back at me with those impossibly intelligent eyes and did something I'll never forget. It smiled. Not a threat display, but an actual smile, sad and resigned. Then it pointed to its injured leg, to the blood trail we'd left, to the tactical team's approach route. They'd follow us unless something stopped them, unless someone stopped them. The creature picked up a piece of rebar from its tool collection, testing its weight. Even wounded, even dying, it was going to fight. Not to win, but to make sure we escaped with the truth. The volcanic tube was a nightmare. Ancient lava had created a passage that twisted upward through the mountain, sometimes wide enough to walk, sometimes so narrow we had to exhale to squeeze through. Behind us, we heard the confrontation begin roaring, gunfire, men screaming. Then, more roars, from multiple directions. The creature's family had come. We climbed in darkness, our flashlights dead. The only illumination came from bioluminescent minerals that the creature had marked along the path, a trail of faint green dots leading upward. My chest burned from exertion, and Tina's breathing was ragged. The bag of evidence banged against my back with every movement. A section of tube had partially collapsed, leaving a gap of maybe 2 feet. As I helped Tina through, her hand found something smooth in the rubble. A human skull, old, with a pickaxe still embedded in it. One of the 1894 miners, probably. He'd made it this far trying to escape the cave-in. "Keep moving," I told her. The passage opened into a chamber where fresh air flowed from above. The creature had installed handholds, metal spikes driven into the rock at regular intervals. We climbed, not looking down, not thinking about the drop below. The sounds of combat had faded, replaced by something worse, the rhythmic thump of helicopters. Near the top, we found the creature's emergency cache. Medical supplies, packaged food with recent expiration dates, water bottles, even a solar emergency radio. But what caught my eye were the notebooks. Dozens of them, filled with the creature's observations. Not just about humans, but about its own kind. Population counts, family trees, migration patterns. A complete anthropological study of a species we didn't know existed. Tina grabbed as many notebooks as she could stuff in the backpack. I took the rest. We were preserving evidence of an entire hidden civilization. The exit was concealed by manufactured cover branches and moss woven together to look natural from above. We emerged on a steep hillside about 2 miles from the mine. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Below us, smoke rose from the direction of the mine. They were burning everything. 3 helicopters circled the area. No identifying marks, just like the creature's photos had shown. We stayed low, moving through thick underbrush toward the logging road where we'd parked. Every shadow could be surveillance. Every sound might be pursuit. The notebooks were devastating. The creatures had names for each other, written phonetically. They had burial customs, celebrating births, mourning deaths. They'd watched Seattle grow from a small town to a metropolis. They'd seen the forests shrink, the safe places disappear. They tried to avoid us, but we kept expanding into their territory. The most recent entries documented the systematic hunting. October 6th, 3 killed at Cascade Pass. October 10th, 2 juveniles, captured near Lake Chelan. October 14th, an elder shot at Ruby Creek. The creature we'd met had been documenting genocide. We reached a creek and followed it down slope. The water would mask our heat signature from any thermal imaging. Tina was shaking, not from cold, but from shock. We'd just witnessed first contact between 2 intelligent species, and our government was ensuring only one would survive. "Paul," she whispered, "what if they're right? What if these things are dangerous?" I thought about the creature's gentle hands treating its own wounds, the careful preservation of missing persons posters, the children's books it had taught itself to read, the way it had smiled before sacrificing itself for us. "They're not the dangerous ones," I said. We heard vehicles on the road above us, lots of them. They were setting up a perimeter containing the area. We went deeper into the forest, following game trails the creature had probably used countless times. As darkness fell, we heard them calling our names over loudspeakers, claiming there had been a mine collapse, that our families were worried. My family lived in Arizona. They had no idea I was even here. We emerged from the forest near dawn, 2 miles from where we'd entered. The creature was gone, vanished into the deep woods with that supernatural silence they all seemed to possess. Even wounded, even dying, it had moved through the underbrush without leaving a trace I could follow. The helicopters were gone too, but the smoke still rose from the mine's direction. Whatever evidence remained down there was being systematically destroyed. Tina clutched the backpack full of notebooks like a lifeline. The map the creature had given her was already committed to memory, which she'd studied it during our escape, recognizing landmarks, understanding the symbols. "We need to get to the ranger station," she said. "Document everything before." "No." I grabbed her arm. "That's exactly where. They'll be waiting." I was right. From the ridge above the station, we could see 3 black SUVs parked outside. Carl Brennan stood by the entrance, talking to men in suits. Federal agents, no doubt, waiting for us to walk right into their trap. "My car's at the north trailhead," Tina whispered. 3 miles. We circled wide, staying in the tree line. Every sound made us freeze: a snapping branch, a bird call, the distant sound of engines. The creature's notebooks weighed heavy in the backpack. Dozens of observations, hundreds of pages documenting a parallel society that had existed alongside ours for centuries. At the trailhead, Tina's Subaru sat alone. No ambush, no surveillance that I could see. But as she reached for her keys, I noticed something: a small device attached to the rear bumper. A tracker. "They already know," I said. Tina looked at the device, then at me. "So we make copies first. Give them something they can't suppress." The nearest town was Marblemount, 20 minutes away. The library had a scanner and internet access. We worked fast, uploading everything to multiple cloud services, emailing copies to journalists, researchers, anyone who might listen. The photographs of the tactical team, the journal entries, the maps showing creature territories throughout the Cascades. We'd barely finished when they arrived. Not dramatically, just Brennan and 2 federal agents walking calmly through the library door. "Paul, Tina," Brennan said, his voice carrying that false concern I'd heard so many times. "Thank God you're safe. There was a mine collapse. We've been searching everywhere." "Don't," I said. "We know what really happened." The agents flanked us, hands resting on concealed weapons. Other library patrons were quietly ushered out. Within minutes, we were alone with them. "You've been exposed to toxic gases," Brennan continued, maintaining the script. "Hydrogen sulfide can cause severe hallucinations. We need to get you medical attention." They confiscated everything: the backpack, the notebooks, our phones, even the clothes we were wearing. Evidence of an entire species, gone. But the digital copies were already spreading across the internet, impossible to completely erase. As they led us to separate vehicles, I saw something in the forest behind the library. A shadow, too large to be human, watching from between the trees. For just a moment I saw eyes reflecting the morning light. Then nothing. They were still out there, watching, waiting, surviving. The debriefing lasted 3 days. They kept us at a federal facility near Seattle, not a prison, they insisted. Just a medical observation facility for our own safety. The rooms were comfortable. The food was good. The doors locked from the outside. They brought in specialists, psychologists who explained how carbon monoxide exposure could create vivid hallucinations, neurologists who showed us brain scans of people with false memories, a toxicologist who detailed the effects of various mind gases on human perception. "You never saw a creature," the lead interviewer said for the 100th time. "You experienced a shared delusion brought on by environmental factors." They had explanations for everything. The photographs on the memory card, clever hoaxes created by eco-terrorists trying to halt development. The notebooks, forgeries planted to support the hoax. The driver's licenses, stolen from Forest Service records. They showed us documents to sign, standard forms acknowledging we'd been exposed to toxic substances, agreeing to ongoing medical monitoring, understanding that discussing our hallucinations could cause public panic and would be considered a federal crime under various national security statutes. "Sign the papers, Paul," Brennan said during one session. "Take your pension, move somewhere quiet, live your life." "What happened to the creature?" I asked. "There was no creature. The tactical team, the helicopters, the training exercise. Bad timing. Your confusion is understandable given your condition." On the 3rd day, they brought in Tina. She looked exhausted, defeated. She'd already signed the papers. As she passed me in the hallway, she pressed something into my hand, a tiny piece of paper. I palmed it, read it later in the bathroom. "They have my sister's kids' addresses. The threat was clear. Sign, or the people you love might have accidents." I signed. They relocated me to North Dakota the next week. Administrative position, full pension, a nice apartment. Everything I needed for a comfortable life, as long as I stayed quiet. They monitored my communications, tracked my movements, made sure I understood the cage they'd built around me. But they made one mistake. They let me keep one personal item: my father's old camera, a film model from the 70s. Sentimental value, they said. No threat. They didn't know about the hidden, compartment my father had built into the case. They didn't know about the single photograph I'd managed to hide there during the chaos, a clear, undeniable image of the creature's face, those intelligent eyes looking directly into the camera. For 6 months, I played along, went to work, kept quiet, waited. Then Tina disappeared. The official story was family emergency leave. Her sister in Oregon needed help, they said. But I called the sister. Tina had never arrived. Her apartment was empty, cleaned out overnight. Her car was found abandoned at a rest stop in Montana. They'd eliminated her because she'd tried to share the truth despite their threats. She'd been leaving coded messages in online forums, hints about what we'd seen. They couldn't allow that. So now I'm talking, recording this testimony, because someone needs to know. Someone needs to continue looking. The creatures are real. They're intelligent. They're being hunted. And the people hunting them will do anything to keep that secret buried. It's been 6 months now since the Copper King mine. 6 months since I watched that creature disappear into the forest, wounded but alive. 6 months since they relocated me to this apartment in Bismarck, North Dakota, about as far from the Cascade Wilderness as you can get without leaving the country. They monitor everything. My phone calls, my internet usage, probably even this recording. But I don't care anymore. Tina's been missing for 3 weeks, and I know what that means. She tried to tell the truth despite their threats, and now she's gone. Just like all the others who got too close. I've learned things in these 6 months. Found others like me online, people who've seen them and been silenced. A hunter in Montana who filmed one in 2017, his footage confiscated, his hunting license revoked. A family in Northern California who had one living near their property for years, bringing them firewood during bad winters, their land seized by eminent domain. They were relocated to Nevada. The pattern is always the same: witness, evidence, suppression, silence. But here's what they don't want you to know. The creatures aren't the danger. They never were. In 50 years of documented encounters hidden in classified files, there's not a single confirmed case of one attacking a human unprovoked. They've helped lost hikers. They've watched our children from the forest edge, making sure they got home safe. They've lived alongside us for centuries, maybe longer, asking nothing but to be left alone. The real danger is the program hunting them, operating since at least 1971, according to documents I've seen. Systematic extermination disguised as wildlife management. They've killed dozens, maybe hundreds. They've captured juveniles for study. They've destroyed families that had existed since before European settlement. And they'll keep doing it unless someone stops them. I still have that photograph. One clear image of the creature's face. Those intelligent eyes looking directly into my camera. It's hidden where they'll never find it, along with GPS coordinates for 3 safe zones the creatures marked on their map. If you're reading this, if you're someone who can actually help, contact me. But be careful, be smart. They're watching. The creatures are still out there, deeper in the wilderness now, harder to find. But they're running out of places to hide. Every year, the safe zones shrink. Every year, more disappear. Some things in the forest are wounded not by accident, but by design. And sometimes, the real monsters carry badges and briefcases.